been doing some research on the Bāb, and it is hard work because it is so dominated by Baha'i writings. It's so hard to get actual history in English. I wish I had a talent for learning other languages. Some of the stuff that we get on well, your talk is going to sort some of this out when you get the chance, right?
Well, I'll try it. I mean, I've been trying to sort all of this out for the last 20 years, and all of this stuff, with the Abu Kiras and these trolls and all of it is all part of this because, these people are ultimately trolls for hire, and anybody who pays them, they will work for. And, the establishment to which these Baha'is belong do not want the Bāb represented as it was. Do not want the doctrine of the Bayān. Don't want to know anything about Sofa Azal. They want, the Baha'is. And how they represent. So they are dominating every element of it on every bandwidth of the internet and elsewhere. And I have proof of this in the manner in which the Waḥīd Islam rejected my article on the organizational hierarchy of the Bābīs and the comments that I got from these totally biased Baha'i referees. And that is my evidence that they want to suppress this information forever. And so, we have one of two options. You either, if you can't beat them, join them, and that is not an option for me. Or you continue to fight until, maybe someday, not in your lifetime, but in somebody else's lifetime, finally, the path is cleared and this stuff can come out and be studied and looked at within its own context.
Now, one of the things that I was curious on with sort of the change and innovation that Baha'is do is the things of the Bāb that they affirm, how have they changed it? So, for an example, the 19-day feast. What was the original 19-day feast like before the sort of meetings that Baha'is have now?
The 19-day feast is basically in the Bayān that every 19 days the believers should simply meet, even if they don't have anything but water to serve to each other, that they should congregate and say prayers, maybe sing a few songs, so music is allowed. And that was the end of it. So that these 19 days, at the beginning of each Bayānī month, the Bayānīs get together. Now, what has significantly changed is in the way that the calendar itself operates. And this is especially in evidence that the Bāb intended his calendar of 361 days of 19 months to just be a straight 19-month, 361 calendars. No intercalary days, no calculation of leap years at all. So the current Baha'i calendar is actually inaccurate. It is not calculating, the 19 days, 19 months correctly. And furthermore, every year, besides a leap year, should have 4 interval days and not 5. But yet the Baha'is call certain days the Ayyam Ha, or the days of the letter Ha, which has a numerical value of 5. And this just defies understanding how they justify this when it actually should be Ayyam Dal, the days to the numerical value of the letter Dal, which is 4. Go ahead.
Something that I've noticed that there's a push from Western sources to also change the calendar of Islam to make it easier for us to market and sell.
Yeah, it's just all about making things easy to sell. Yeah.
So there's like a very clear, I think, capitalist motivation there, and probably with the Badī॒ calendar as well.
This is absolutely the case. Because the Badī॒ calendar, the way that the Bāb conceives it, right, is actually kind of a lunar calendar. Right.
Yes. So and it's harder for West to sell to. So
well, also just consider the fact a lunar calendar harkens to Islamic praxis.
Exactly. Of course.
And the Baha'is represent a de-Islamization of all of this stuff and a whitewashing of any elements of Islamicity out of the Bayān. right?
So for an example I like to bring up of that is that you can't actually read the words of the Imam in a Baha'i house of prayer. They don't consider that to be infallible. They'll let you read the Bible, but they won't let you read the words of the Imam. And
yet per the Bayān, Christianity and Judaism are religions abrogated twice, 3 times removed. That means that the proximity of the Imams, even though technically the dispensation of the Qur'ān has been abrogated by that of the Bayān, nevertheless the Imams, right, in their lineal connection to the primal point, are much closer than the Bible. The Bible, as it stands, as far as the position of the Bayān is a completely abrogated text, abrogated scripture. So the Bible
scholars generally agree that there are interpolations edited into the Bible.
That's a completely different discussion. But where the Bayān is concerned is that the Kitab of the Injil and the Torah are abrogated. So these religions are no longer relevant. They have been abrogated, even though they exist, but they're abrogated religions. This is the cyclical idea of the Bayān, that each dispensation abrogates the one previous to itself. So the Imams, right, and in the form that the Bayān articulates the return of the Imams in the 18 Letters of the Living, has more relevance to the now than the text of the King James Bible that the Baha'is are so fixated on in their various gatherings. But this tells you that Bahā'ism is at core connected to the assumptions of the Western establishment and its more conservative wing. And it is a completely Islamophobic and anti-Islamic creed. Whereas even though the Bayān claims that the Qur'an in its juridical ordinances is an abrogated faith, right? That the text, that the laws and ordinances of the Qur'an are abrogated henceforth. Nevertheless, the Qur'an has a continuing relevance to the Bayān, especially in terms of the fact that the Imams, during their time, during their ministries, are seen by the Bayān to be the speaking Qur'an, and then returned in the 18 Letters of the Living, or at least 14 of them. And see, this is where you get to see what a completely subversive, anti-Bābī, anti-Bayānī creed Bahā'ism actually is. And let's also continue this. The Baha'is, beginning with Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri himself, deliberately went out of their way to completely misrepresent some of the very key central doctrines of the Persian and Arabic Bayāns. For example, it was Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri himself, before any of the other critics of the seminary, the Shiite seminary, got wind of this, who made the claim that the Bāb advocated the destruction and the burning of books. And they isolate one particular passage in the 6th gate of the 6th unity of the Persian Bayān, where the context of the discussion has nothing to do with physical destruction of any book, but it's about obviating the centrality of a scripture. And I've actually said this before, the word used is mahf, right? But yet, in the 13th gate of the 9th unity of the Bayān, in the Arabic Bayān, so this is by the Bāb, the Baha'is can't make the claim that this is by Sopa Azal, even though Sopa Azal continued this ordinance in the continuation of the Persian Bayān, in Persian. In the 13th gate of the 9th unity of the Persian Bayān, the Bāb is unequivocal that no book, and that means all books, whether books revealed in the Bayān or books not revealed in the Bayān, should under no circumstances be harmed, should under no circumstances be burned. But yet this was the position that Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri Bahā'u'llah, the founder of Bahā'ism, who claimed to be the fulfillment of the Bayān, made against the Bayān itself.
It does sort of seem that Bahā'u'llah had an interest in Dayan destroying books.
Yes.
He wanted to hide these texts so he could make up his own completion to them.
Which he didn't do. I mean, one of the things that is assumed about the incompletion of the Bayān itself, we have The Bayān is supposed to be 19 chapters of 19 sections each, right? Currently, only about 209 sections all up, or 209 gates in total. That is, 11 unities in total, 11 chapters in total exist. And there's 152 gates, or 8 chapters that have been left unfinished. And, although Shoghi Effendi made the claim that the Kitab-i-Iqan is the completion of the Bayān, which it isn't.
That makes no sense.
Which makes no sense. And it's just, because the Bayān is not just a book of ma'arif, meaning it's not just a book of spirituality, it's also a book of laws. Nowhere in the Kitab-i-Iqan do we actually see any ordinance, whether as a continuation or as an abrogation of a previous ordinance of the Bayān. So Shoghi Effendi's claim right there is patent nonsense. And also, Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri never made any attempt to kind of, finish the Bayān. And he is also on record himself that he never actually even read the Bayān.
Wow, he actually admitted
to
that?
He went on records claiming that he had never actually perused the Bayān, but this was part of his claim to being unlettered, to being ummi, to never having perused the text of his quote-unquote previous manifestation, which is just, this is total farce, and then how people of that time, even those people who actually came over to his side, looked at such statements with a straight face, just defies belief. Yeah, this is the thing. Bahā'ism, is literally built on a house of sand. And if it wasn't for the violence of these early Baha'is against the Bayānīs, and the manner in which Bahā'u'llah already had the machinery of the of Bābism in his hands, there would have been no way that this creed would have been able to establish itself and set aside the Bayānīs. It's just as simple and straightforward as that.
Well, being a pawn of the British Empire may have helped them out a little
Absolutely.
bit.
That being a pawn of the British, first the Russian Tsarists, who had an interest, as we're finding out now, in wanting the Bāb executed and putting down the Bābī movement. But then all of a sudden we see Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri's brother-in-law becoming an employee of the Russian embassy. So after the attempt on the life of Nasir-ud-Din Shah in August 1852, all of a sudden the first place that Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri finds himself seeking refuge is within the Russian embassy in Tehran. Yeah.
Well, proxy war goes back a lot farther than people seem to think, and you can see it's these people were trying to they were trying to subvert government and thought of this as a way to cause chaos.
Yeah, and then they have the temerity of making this accusation against the Bayānīs. Although, the Bayānīs worked for 50 years after the martyrdom of the primal point in overthrowing the Qajar state and regime. And they also...
the constitutional revolution.
Yeah,
right?
And that's what the constitutional revolution ultimately was. And they did ultimately take down that corrupt monarchy. Their target was also the reactionary mullahs. They didn't quite succeed in that. So this is a continuing project. Nevertheless, what the Baha'is did is that the Baha'is aligned themselves with the forces of Western colonialism and the Tsarists. Whereas the Bayānīs never actually did that. They never aligned with the forces of Western imperialism or the Tsars, because in the Bayān, in the Persian Bayān itself, the Bāb is very unequivocal that these forces need to be kept at arm's length. And that these people are not allies. We should probably accommodate them, but they are not our allies, and we should keep them at arm's length.
Well, the primal point knew what he was talking about, of course.
100%. Whereas Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri, in that Baghdad period, made an official alliance with people such as Manakji Limji Hatariya, the Parsi agent of the British Empire in Iran, as well as Mirza Malcolm Khan, who was both a diplomat in the Qajar court, but then later walked away from the Qajars as well and became an outright agent of the British Empire.